sourness of the lemon. Fresh fish, only the Gulf is fresher.
The rest night knows, and we, and the tower that sees, and the light that showed me a path through the sea. Justine sent 2 monks out on the Silk Road to China to steal the secret of Chinese craft. They returned with silk-bright eggs, and from them hatched an empire.
It is a dance, where the dancer grows through love towards the truth, and finally reaching
Perfection.
To the city, Istanbul. To the city.
In Istanbul, there are always two cities, 2 speeds, slow and fast. It stands always, the world's capital.
An eternal gratitude for prosperity and abundance. The great Artemis is waiting for you at the Ephesus Museum. Don't miss it. Wander through the pages of history with enthusiasm. The Library of Celsus is waiting for you in Ephesus. Don't miss it. A preeminent witness to the history of the world. The Temple of Aphrodite is waiting for you at the archaeological site of Aphrodisias. Don't miss it. The centuries-old love story of a fountain. The Antonines Fountain is waiting for you at the archaeological site of Sakalassos. Don't miss it. The brightest city of ancient times. The archaeological site of Mira is waiting for you in Demre. Don't miss it.
In 1632, Hazarfen flew from the very top of the Galata Tower and soared across the Bosphorus. And so the Turks learned how to fly.
the saltiness of the sea, the sourness of the lemon. Fresh fish, only the Gulf is fresher.
The rest night knows, and we, and the tower that sees, and the light that showed me a path through the sea. Justinian sent 2 monks from here, out on the Silk Road to China, to steal the secret of Chinese craft. They returned with silk-white eggs, and from them hatched an empire.
It is a dance where the dancer grows through love towards truth and finally reaches perfection.
Dear colleagues, honorable guests, welcome to Turkish Higher Education Quality Council's webinar organized to celebrate the Council's 5th anniversary.
Değerli katılımcılarımız, kıymetli misafirlerimiz, Yükseköğretim Kalite Kurulu'nun 5. yılı için düzenlediğimiz webinara hoş geldiniz.
Actually, we are planning to organize this event face-to-face in our Council's headquarters, but unfortunately, the conditions caused by the pandemic did not allow it.
Bu toplantıyı aslında kurulumuzda yüz yüze yapmayı çok istemiştik. Ancak içinde bulunduğumuz pandemi şartları buna izin vermedi.
First of all, our Council's President, Professor Elmas, will make an opening speech, which will be followed by presentations in 4 different teams. You can send your questions to the speakers by using the chat box during the presentations.
Webinar programımızda öncelikle kurul başkanımız Profesör Doktor Muzaffer Elmas açılış konuşması yapacaktır. Açılış konuşmasının ardından 4 farklı temada sunumlar yapılacaktır. Bu esnada konuşmacılarımıza sorularınızı chat box'tan iletebilirsiniz.
During the webinar, please mute your microphones during the presentations to ensure the best sound quality.
Konuşmacıların net duyulması için lütfen webinar süresince mikrofonlarınızı kapalı tutunuz.
Since the webinar met a great interest happily, we increased the number of attendees from 300 to 500. But still, we want to reach all our stakeholders who could not register via live streaming on our YouTube channel.
Webinarımız için yoğun talep gelmesi üzerine 300 olan katılımcı sayımızı 500'e çıkardık. Ancak yine de kayıt yaptıramayanlar için YouTube kanalımızdan canlı yayınla tüm paydaşlarımıza ulaşmayı hedeflemekteyiz.
The language of the webinar is English, but since our president would like to welcome you in our language, foreign guests can listen to the English simultaneous interpretation of his speech by selecting English in their language settings.
Webinar dili İngilizce olacaktır. Ancak başkanımız sizleri kendi dilimizde selamlamak istediğinden yabancı katılımcılarımız eş anlı İngilizce çeviri için Zoom dil ayarlarını İngilizceye çevirebilirler.
We wish everyone a successful and productive event. Now I would like to give the floor to our president.
Başarılı ve verimli bir program olmasını diliyoruz. Şimdi sözü başkanımıza bırakıyoruz.
İyi günler tüm katılımcılara. Hepinizi saygı sevgiyle selamlıyorum.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We are very pleased to welcome you and to be with you today. Now, I'd like to make you a brief presentation that gives you a little bit of information about our council's activities. This slide shows the current size of the Turkish higher education system. Currently, there are 207 universities, including both state and foundation universities, and nearly 8 million students are enrolled in all levels of higher education. And there are 174,000 academic staff working in the universities. Turkey's quality assurance activities date back to 2002 when Turkey participated in the Bologna process. And THEQC was established as a fully independent body in 2017. Our founding president was Professor Orhan Uzun, and Professor Tuncay Doğeroğlu was our first vice president. And I came to chair as president in 2018. Internationalization is among our main strategic objectives, so we have become members of many notable umbrella organizations around the world. And we become anchor members in April 2020. We also become members in umbrella organizations based in United States, Asia, and other regions. And this is the Bologna scorecard of Turkey. As you can see, we have grown more mature within time. This is an important indicator showing that many related processes have become more mature within time. And our main quality assurance activities can be listed as such. Institutional external evaluation program, and we have institutional accreditation program, which was newly introduced this year. Also, we include the institutions we externally evaluated before to our institutional follow-up program. And all our processes are currently maintained in a blended way, which comprises both online and face-to-face processes. We also authorize and recognize international and national accreditation agencies. Actually, we try to evaluate and improve the university's qualification systems and their learning and teaching research and development criteria. And this graph shows that there is a wide gap between human adaptability and technological changes. And our main duty is here to close this gap. And I personally think that this gap can be closed with digital competencies, agile leadership, and web-based information management systems.
Hem hayat boyu olanların tüm herkesin bu yetkinliklere sahip olması.
And the key to close this gap is to make people acquire digital competencies. And the second important point is to develop web-based information management systems. Closing this gap is expected in the following decade, but with the COVID-19 conditions, people have just started to realize it. And we predict that these parameters will play an important role in the future of higher education. And these concepts gained even more importance during the pandemic conditions because higher education environment and needs of stakeholders are constantly changing, and the pandemic process stresses the importance of these needs even more. And for the future, it's of vital importance for these processes to measure their results in order to comply with diverse and ever-changing global context. One of the most important factors is stakeholder participation and student participation in these processes, which will be presented in detail in following speeches.
Süreyi de dikkatli kullanarak son söz olarak şunu da söylemek istiyorum.
And finally, I would like to say that the world is getting more and more complex every year. So, depending on that, the quality processes and accreditation processes have become even more important. As I am ending my words now, I'd like to tell everyone welcome again and wish everyone a productive and successful meeting. And thanks for everyone who's involved in the process, in the organization of the event. Thank you. And I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker, our Vice President, Professor Sibel Aksu Yıldırım.
Now we are watching a video now.
Dear distinguished guests, dear participants, greetings from headquarters of the Txc. We are very pleased and excited to be with you. Welcome to the Flexible Learning and Quality Assurance session. My name is Sibel Aksu Yıldırım. I'm Vice President of Txc and Head of the External Evaluation and Accreditation Commission. Before presenting our speaker, I would like to give you brief information about Council's activities. The Txc manages its external evaluation activities via External Evaluation and Accreditation Commission. The Commission is responsible for the execution processes of three programs: Institutional External Evaluation Program, Follow-up Program, and Institutional Accreditation Program. You can see the Commission members on the slide: Professors Tuncay Doğeroğlu, Aslan Nasır, Tuğba Yanpar Yelken, and Sina Ercan. I would like to thank the whole team, including our council members, experts, and consultants who carry out their duties with a high sense of belonging and dedication. Here are some numbers about external evaluation activities. Since 2015, 160 higher education institutions have been externally evaluated. There are over 500 experts in our evaluator pool. We have an evaluators training program that we are proud of. We have made a total of 8 so far. 11 higher education institutions have been included in the institutional accreditation program, which we started to implement for the first time in 2020. The process is currently ongoing, and as of 2020, 59 higher education institutions are in the follow-up program. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm pleased to welcome our first invited speaker, Professor Douglas Franklin. He is Emeritus Assistant Dean at Ohio University. His competency areas include assessment and evaluation, quality management and assurance, curriculum development and higher education administration. He is also international advisor of the Txc since 2018. Professor Douglas Franklin, the screen is yours. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Please.
Thank you.
Please.
All right. Good morning. Good morning here. Good afternoon there. According to the World Bank, primary, secondary, and tertiary schools were completely closed for over 1 billion students, and an additional 50 million were impacted by partially closed schools during the initial onset of COVID pandemic. As of July 30th, 2020, 111 countries had completely closed their schools, while 59 had schools open with limitations. Many of these schools reopened in the fall, only to close again due to the resurgence of the virus. These closures continue to force many of the world's students into flexible learning situation. When I was asked to present on the topic of flexible learning and quality assurance, my immediate thought was, I wondered what aspect of flexible learning I should talk about. Will the attendees want to explore flexible courses brought about by recent events such as the pandemic or the refugee crises? If students could not attend face-to-face class, I surmised that flexibility must be added to the course delivery. I immediately looked at online and blended models, information on massive open online courses. Then I started to wonder about how institutions could address flexible learning because of the natural evolution of higher education from fixed to flexible learning. Was that really what was expected of the discussion? I knew I was going to discuss quality assurance and accreditation as it related to flexible learning, so I needed to make sure I focused my efforts on the institution. However, institutions are really part of a greater system, and in my mind, immediately jumped to higher education industry and how it addressed, or more correctly, did not address flexible learning. And as usual, my mind began to broaden the question even farther to how can higher education as a societal entity create an environment that facilitates flexible learning as a foundation for lifelong learning. Adding flexibility to the educational process now more than ever must be a priority. COVID-19 exposed the soft underbelly of education, revealing the failings of a system that was created for a bygone age. We are meeting remotely today because to discuss quality assurance in higher education because we can no longer meet together safely. The world's institutions of higher education face similar barriers in their attempts to gather students safely in lecture halls that were actually designed for an industrial age instruction. While the pandemic may be the most pronounced crisis in the world has faced in recent years, other pressures have forced higher education to review its role in society. In their books, The 60-Year Curriculum, A Strategic Response to the Crisis, John Richards and Chris Dale offered their views on higher education and the impact of these pressures. According to the authors, quote, profound changes in underlying technology, digitization, in combination with root branch organizational adaptation, which is re-engineering or what is called digitalization, have altered the global socioeconomic environment, end quote. These forces of change, adaptation have been produced in what we are calling the synergistic digital economy. Richards and Dade, argue that these disruptive forces and shifts in higher education working lives require a revolution in educational objectives. In essence, a move to flexible learning. So let's start briefly by looking at what is flexible learning and its primary purpose, why it's important, and then how to how quality of flexible learning can be assured through the quality assurance and accreditation processes. Flexible learning is basically learning anywhere, anytime. The process is learner-centered, resulting in more independence and autonomy for the learner, but requiring more student responsibilities. The process is also on a continuum rather than a fixed state. Flexible learning enables and empowers learners by giving them greater control and to become more self-directed. The resulting increase in modality choice for both learners and teachers results in a blurring of traditional internal and external boundaries. There are various modes of flexible learning. Notice that these modalities require thoughtful and careful planning and should be differentiated from the emergency remote teaching, which was the primary response to the learning crisis employed at the onset of the pandemic. A review of flexible learning programs in the University of Florida, the United States, the University of British Columbia in Canada, and Deakin University in Australia revealed several benefits, including improved learning outcomes resulting from evidence-based and technology-embedded learning methods, greater choice of learning options, including online, face-to-face, blended, and MOOCs, more scheduling options, and enhanced personalization of degree programs. Additional benefits of flexible learning programs include just-in-time learning options for career learners, improved and diverse learning experiences, for example, more experiential and community-based learning options and more global learning options, and more content in the form of learning materials. These resources often are offered at no cost and are not restricted to students registering for degree programs. These benefits highlight the impact of flexible learning has on lifelong learning. Deakin University provides a good description of the pedagogical philosophy associated with flexible learning. The approach is learner-centered, encouraging greater independence and autonomy on the part of the learner. Its ethos is to enable the empower and learners and give them a greater control of their learning to become more self-directed. It increases choices available to both learners and teachers. Conceptions of flexibility include flexibility of admissions and enrollment processes, in assessment and assessment times, and introduce or increasing flexibility is not necessarily a good thing in and of itself. The key issue is how it impacts learning and the quality of that experience. Flexible learning is about improving outcomes and maximizing engagement using appropriate learning approaches. However, as Eleanor Roosevelt, our First Lady for Franklin Delano Roosevelt, freedom comes with great responsibility. This diagram provides a framework for flexible learning and comes from Advanced Higher Education, a charitable nonprofit organization in the United Kingdom. Advanced Higher Education focuses its efforts on transformational leadership and management, teaching, learning, equality, diversity, inclusion, and effective governance in higher education. And it presents a complexity associated with flexible learning. The four prime areas of this model are institutional agility, personal flexibility, balanced pragmatism, and learner choice. These areas not only frame the development and implementation of flexible learning programs, but also provide a roadmap to guide quality assurance efforts. The third ring of the framework highlights questions often associated with quality assurance process. These may include things like, what will flexible learning accomplish and what evidence is needed to assess its effectiveness and efficiency? When and where does flexible learning occur, and how will flexible learning be applied and measured? And an article by Jeff Lawson, CEO of Twilio, suggests one of the lessons he learned from assessing his company's successes and failures was the need for agility, the kind of, quote, change on a dime mentality, end quote, that incorporates new information and responses to problems. Here we see the importance of developing agile and nimble institutional systems and structures to address flexible learning. I would also add that agile leadership to this list. From the center of agile leadership, an agile leader are inclusive democratic leaders who exhibit greater openness to ideas and innovations. There'll be more on agile leadership from Dr. Wu a little bit later. Quality assurance considerations for institutional agility might include things like what institutional systems and processes support flexible learning? How is this flexible learning program's effectiveness determined? How is institutional agility demonstrated? And what is the level of leadership support and how is that demonstrated? A brief look at the institutional external evaluation and accreditation criteria from Txc suggests that the area
I think there is a microphone problem.
It will be a connection problem.
Professor Franklin, do you hear me? Professor Franklin? Fatih Bey, could you please doing something?
I try, Miss. It's a kind of connection problem, I think. Douglas has fault.
Maybe he's going to come again. Sorry for this condition. Okay, we are waiting him.
Miss Yildirim, he's not in the participant list now. I think
he's trying to reconnect. Yeah, he wrote to the WhatsApp, and he's going to reconnect.
Yes, maybe we can display our videos now while connecting with Professor Douglas.
Yeah, it's a good idea, Professor Aslan.
Miss Aksu, Mr. Franklin has connected now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Sorry about that. We have
no problem.
We have internet problems everywhere in the world, don't we?
Yeah.
By the way, just as a side note, this is a problem with flexible learning and technology. In a previous presentation, I talked about, when 50% of the population in the United States in particular can't get stable internet, how do you think flexible learning is going to work? All right, so let's move on. So the foundation of flexible learning is the focus on personal flexibility, grounding on technology, enhanced learning modalities. Elements necessary to enhance flexible learning include the learners' and instructors' digital literacy. I would add also to that the institutional backbone that would help that. Access to mobile learning, spaces used for flexible learning, and the measurement, collection, analysis, and reporting of data about learners for purposes of understanding and optimizing learning. This is called learning analytics. Quality assurance considerations for personal flexibility might contain the following. How does the institution support flexibility in the learning environment? How does the institution assist in the development of technology skills for students and faculty? How is technology enhanced learning assessed? What type of systems within the institution might support flexible learning as a backbone? Txc criteria here, the areas to assess personal flexibility might be located in the following: quality assurance system, particularly in the sub areas of mission and strategic objectives again, learning and teaching in the sub areas of learning, student-centered learning and teaching and evaluation. We might here also add research and development, particularly in the areas of all of the areas, strategies, resources, but particularly for those faculty that are in the field of innovative learning design and technology, which used to be called instructional technology. The move to flexible learning addresses today's reality in a mobile society and changes in employment opportunities brought about by technology and AI, or artificial intelligence. Today, education is not finite. It's not one and done or four and out. Education is continuous and lifelong. Balanced pragmatism associated with flexible learning attempts to adjust the learning process to address the need for student transitions, independent, collaborative, inclusive, lifelong, and personal learning. The concept of balanced pragmatism suggests the enhanced usability of flexible learning to address continuous learning requirements in an ever-changing world. Quality assurance questions here examine the usefulness of the desired outcome. How is flexible learning addressed in institutional planning? How does the institution support student transitions? And what programs facilitate career and training and retraining? Txc criteria here again would be quality assurance systems in the areas of mission and strategic objectives, and stakeholder participation as part of planning efforts in learning and teaching, especially in the areas of design and approval of program and student-centered learning. And finally, social contribution in all the areas of strategy, resources, and performance. Finally, the model provides guidance for the fourth element of flexible learning, learner choice. Here, the focus is on employment and the factors of employability, work-related learning, and flexible working conditions and globalization. In essence, flexible learning is an attempt to engage students throughout their life, anytime, anywhere, using the preferred method of learning through the use of enhanced technology. Here, quality assurance considerations of choice explores how students are involved in the design of programs. How does the institution demonstrate individual or societal impacts? And how do flexible learning programs meet the changing needs of the student and society? Txc criteria for learner choice, again, looks at quality assurance systems, perhaps in mission and strategic objectives, stakeholder participation, and in internationalization to see what others are doing. Student participation and stakeholders will be discussed in depth by Liv Muth and Patrick Niebergall later on in the conversation, and while internationalization may be discovered or discussed by Ronnie Heinzer later in the webinar. Another area for Txc would be in learning and teaching, and that provides some guidance, particularly in the areas of program design and approval. And finally, Section D, social contribution, in all of the sub-criteria of strategy, resources, and performance, similar to the other issues or the other methods. In conclusion, flexible learning is becoming the fixture in modern day higher education. Using multiple modalities, flexible learning is learner-centered and occurs anywhere at any time and meets the societal needs of mobility and transformation. Flexible learning does not require any special criteria to be evaluated and can be assessed using current quality assurance and accreditation models. Flexible learning is learning and falls or should fall in the same criteria used in all learning programs. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much, Professor Douglas Franklin. It was very impressive presentation and hot topic for us. I would like to remind the audience, if you have any questions or contributions, please write them into the chat box. We have 1 minute, but maybe we can have one question now.
Sure.
I'm checking the chat box at the same time. Okay, maybe I want to ask first question. What can we do to adapt and spread flexible learning in higher education institutions?
I think there.
Yeah, could you give some examples of practices, especially such as encouraging academic staff or recognizing maybe micro-credentials?
Sure. Yeah, I think what needs to happen is it's going to always start with faculty. Mm-hmm. Faculty are the ones that are actually providing that academic. I mean, everything else is academic support, but faculty need to work with not only the people that are providing micro-credentialing, but industries that are needing micro-credentialing. And that's micro-credentialing actually is filling a gap. You know, as one of the famous sayings is nature abhors a vacuum, and the vacuum created by rigid higher education requiring 4 years of school created a need for students to either retrain or have a specific skill or a competency that somebody needed. So I think balancing those kind of things works really well. One of the things that many, particularly in the United States, and I don't know if it's around the world, but we look at experiential learning, experiences that people bring to higher education and then credential those. I worked extensively with veterans that were coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. And what we did is we highlighted what skills that they learned while on military service. A great example was one of my wife's students who was he was a mortarman and actually understood trigonometry and significant math skills that he learned as using that skill in the military. We talk about leadership, we talk about management, communication skills, flexibility on the ground, and all of those are transferable skills, and all of those are skills and competencies that you could use in micro-credentialing that many businesses are seeking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Franklin. Once again, thank you, and we have very limited time, but if you write your questions to the chat box, Dr. Franklin is going to answer them.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. Dear participants, I thank you for your participation and contribution to this session, and I leave the word to Professor Aslan Nasır for the next session. Aslan Hocam. Please unmute.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Franklin and Professor Sibel Akçayıldırım, for this very fruitful discussion. I think the discussion will continue on the chat box as well. Let me share my presentation with you. Just let me a few seconds. Do you see my screen?
Yes, that's perfect.
Is it okay? Now?
Yes, good.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, a great hello to our distinguished participants. Now, welcome to the Internationalization and Accreditation session. I'm Aslan Nasır, member of Txc and the head of International Relations Commission. I would like to give you brief information about Txc's international activities before moving to our invited speakers' presentation. Now, in line with Txc's internationalization strategy, we aim to be compatible with universal norms and principles by being member to umbrella organizations in quality assurance. Likewise, Txc developed its relations with international counterparts by making collaborations and agreements. TXC also extended its evaluator pool by adding international evaluators from all over the world. And as TXC, we aim to contribute to the intellectual environment in quality assurance by attending to conferences and conducting top-notch research in the field of quality assurance in higher education. By the way, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all of my colleagues in the Commission and all the experts and consultants who devote all of their time and effort for the success of this Commission. Now, let us briefly look at the international activities of TXC with numbers by 2020. Actually, TXC has been granted membership to 4 major umbrella organizations in quality assurance, including ENQA, EPQN, INCAI, and CIQG. Besides, we have signed 2 bilateral agreements with NCPA from Russia and ARCERES from France. In addition, we have 3 collaborations and experience sharing meetings with NACA from Ukraine, AREGIS from Romania, and British Council from United Kingdom. Recently, we have attended to international conferences and forums in which we make presentations and submit our research. And actually, these are the top of them are ECAF 2019, INCA and EPQN 2020. Finally, we extended our evaluator pool by a call to the international quality assurance community. Currently, we have 28 international evaluators, and there were more than 60 applicants for the call that we have made. Now, I am very pleased to welcome our invited speaker, Ronnie Heinzer. He is a senior consultant at ACAS, Germany's prominent and largest accreditation agency. He is represented ENQA in the program committee of ECAF, which he chaired in year 2019. Ronnie, welcome again, and now the screen is yours. Are you here?
I'm here. Thank you, Aslihan.
Okay, I'm just stopping my share screen now. It's your turn.
Wonderful. So thank you, Aslihan, for this very nice welcome and this introduction. And before I share my screen, congratulations to all of you at the QC for 5 years, which I have to admit are an impressive story of success to observe from the sideline. What you have achieved in this short time for the academic system is very, very impressive. And once again, congratulations. So I'll start sharing my screen. I hope that should work by now. And by now you should see it, I hope. Because my topic is internationalization. And I think this is next to flexibilization, a very, very pressing and important topic that we still have in the higher education area. So I'll talk about internationalization from what I think makes it so very interesting, and I'll look at the role of accreditation, and maybe then also spend a couple of minutes to cover the question of the quality of internationalization, because that's very often forgotten. So internationalization from perspective of higher education, I think even if we do not only look at higher education, internationalization is of growing importance at all levels. And that basically is reflected if you look at higher education, if you look at strategies and mission statements of higher education institutions, you will probably see that the attention that is given to internationalization is very high. So it's hard to find any institution that in its strategy and in its mission does not cover the aspect of internationalization per se. In many systems, what you also see, and this is a little bit of pressure on higher education, you see an increased role of privatization and private actors in the field. so that there is like revenue generation, but there is competition in the market of higher education in many systems, and that also puts the institutions on an international level because they are competing with other institutions for students on the national but also on the international. So this is one aspect where I then also think the question of global rankings come into play, where really the institutions compete on an international level, and there is lots of attention, and I'm talking from the quality assurance, external quality assurance perspective. There is lots of attention to the question of quantity and of indicators that can help to have a better performance in ranking and all these, but not so much on the quality. And that's why I want to, if that allows me to continue, to take a sidestep and ask the question of what are we looking at when we look at internationalization, and why I think it matters to take a qualitative look at things. Very often there is the argumentation that higher education per se is international. So there is no way you can have a non-international higher education. And because this very often is an answer to, and of course we can put this in our mission statement because higher ed is international by itself. I would put that into question and ask really like why, because that probably the answer to the question why is different from institution to institution, or can be different. You have to answer that why, you have the global context, which is external to higher education. So you have the global context, regional context, which is different from institution to institution, but even local. So if you're based in Istanbul, probably you're in a very different surrounding when you look at what is my approach towards internationalization than if you are based in a city where you're the only higher education institution that is available in the region. What are we looking at when we look at internationalization in higher education? And I would say that there are three pillars. One that is very clearly to be looked at is the whole question of mobility, the question of mobility of students, but very often, like not in the focus, is the mobility of academics, also administrators, mobility that is included in programs. It has a link to the curriculum. But also like projects and the institutional mobility scheme. Another pillar that I think is very interesting to look at when we look at internationalization in higher education is the question of partnerships. And that is a next level. That is not only mobility. These are bilateral partnerships. These are multilateral partnerships, but for some institutions and sometimes even on the national level, you can see the development of strategic partnerships where institutions really pair up and develop something together. That's also a part where I would say you can have joint initiatives, and consider joint programs, joint curriculum developments, and joint degrees. And of course, then, and this is another level, very interesting, is the curriculum level, which basically means you can have a choice, you can make a choice to internationalize the curricular. So you look at the knowledge, you look at the skills, you look at the attitudes that you include in the curriculum, and basically then see how is that subject to internationalization. So what do I qualify for? What are the skills that I need? And how do you do that? And this is the last part, is basically you can have the approach of internationalization at home, very, very widespread strategic approach to say we have a big part of internationalization that we operate and include at home. Then basically you look at the curriculum, you look at the joint programs, you look at the intercultural or more internationally oriented learning outcomes. But you can also look, and this is the other part of the what, you can see how you operationalize short-term mobilities. That covers students, but that also covers like staff. You can have credit mobility. That's really, and I think this has a very clear link to the question flexibility. When you look at what can you include in a program and how can you mobilize your credits, and that of course links to recognition then. And probably this is, for the why, I think it's very much on the level where institutions have to give strategic answers. But for the what and for the how, I think accreditation and external quality assurance can play a role and can be a very supportive partner in this process. So let's look at the role of accreditation for that. And the good thing is with the QC, we are all in one family in the European higher education area. Having the Turkish agency being a member of ENQA, that also means that we all speak the same language to a certain extent and look at the same things. And what I think is very, very convincing when we look at how we do quality assurance in the European higher education area, there is the Bologna triangle that I refer to. And that basically means quality assurance that you see is only one part of it. Because as part of the process, we use qualification frameworks, we use national qualification frameworks, but also the European qualification framework, lifelong learning. And there is also the third part, which is the recognition part. And if you see that all together, and if you do not think that individually and focus only on quality assurance, but you see quality assurance connected to the frameworks and to the recognition, you basically see how this is all tailored towards enabling and supporting mobility. Because if you basically have qualification framework that allows to align qualifications, and if you have quality assurance that certifies and basically makes sure we have the same standards, and you have it recognized, then it all plays together for that. And accreditation in light of internationalization, basically, and this is coming back to the European standards and guidelines, it has all these components in it. Because if you accredit or quality assure, under the European standards and guidelines, there is a reference to the qualification frameworks. There is a reference to the European credit transfer system, and to recognition, which usually is like reference to under the Lisbon Recognition Convention, and how this is all reflected in internal quality assurance. And that basically puts this really nicely together, because as part of an accreditation procedure, you would usually look at issues and consider things that are vital to enable mobility, to make it work, and for that sake can be part of a solution to an increased internationalization. I'm not saying that that's all, but all the elements are there, and if they're used wisely, they can really benefit an internationalization process. And since basically now we're also, and I think Adnan mentioned that beforehand, that the QC is cooperating with others, with other accreditation bodies as well. There is also the aspect, and for internationalization, that's something I think is very interesting to consider, is to look at what happens if I basically leave, as an institution, I leave my own framework, I leave my own national context, and I do consider to be internationally accredited. Because that basically means you have another perspective, which is usually an outside perspective. And as long as we all are in the same European higher education area, usually things are quite interesting to look at, because we use comparable, not the same, but comparable concepts. And I think that's also one of the achievements that the Quality Council really made is to align the Turkish quality assurance approach to one that is shared amongst Europe, and that's I think a great success. So, but if you basically take a look and you also consider international accreditation, you will find that the standards that are used there do not so much have a national focus. And that basically also means you have a more international panel. You have to be a little bit stronger in your self-reflection and self-questioning. And if you do not do that as an institution, the panel for sure will do it, because they will not understand some of the contexts that for you are very common. So they will put things into question and have you reflect on things that you take for granted. And that's quite interesting. So you also get an international perspective. that is part of the review panel. And because I mean, I do that in my everyday job, and a review with an international background is an intercultural experience during the review. You have academics that discuss, that basically discuss on the subject, and there is so much learning on both sides. So there is always a give and take, I would say. And of course, there is an increased international visibility coming along with it. And very, very often you also see a couple of spin-offs where you basically see that you have academics interacting across borders, and then people come up with new research ideas. They recognize they have things in common, they have shared interests, and then they start up new processes also in research or cooperation. So on that end, I think accreditation itself, but also international accreditation, can be a supporting factor for internationalization to the extent that it is, of course, preferred from the institution. And lastly, and this is basically a little bit of a learning experience that we have done in Germany, but much more on the European level. It is the question of quality of internationalization, because there is, and I think nobody nowadays can talk about internationalization without at least naming the name of Jane Knight in it. It is the question of what is the interest of an institution to become more international, and what is the approach, and is internationalization integrated in all the different layers, in the purpose and the functions, or in the delivery of education. And with internationalization being a priority in many higher education systems, the question of good internationalization pretty much arises. So because, I mean, everybody wants to know, how do I do it? Is there another concept that works for you that can also work for me? So it is a little bit of the question of, can you basically assist institutions in this process of coming to an internationalization approach that is fit for purpose, that is fit for this? Because, and this is talking from experience, very often when you look and when you discuss strategies on internationalization with institutions, I always believe that many institutions are world-class institutions. They're leading in the field. While basically, if you dig it a little bit deeper, they're very strong institutions. They have really excellent in the program and on institution level. But maybe their goal and their setting is not becoming a world-leading institution, because they have another focus and intention. And this is the last slide on that end. Because we have recognized that internationalization is still challenging and the field of operations for institutions. The European Consortium for Higher Accreditation, which is a combination of agencies within Europe, very active one, has developed a certificate for quality and internationalization. And I'm not here to promote that certificate, but what I can really encourage institutions, and that is true wherever you are in the world, and from the many very well internationalized institutions in Turkey that I know, one of the things that I can only always recommend is, from that sequence certificate, there is a set of standards that they have developed in ECA, and and this is all published on the ECA website, and it's really worthwhile considering these standards and looking at these standards, because they deliver great questions of that an institution can use to reflect his or her institutional strategy towards internationalization. And very often that's a very good beginning and starting point for an internal debate, and for like an assessment of where are we really as an institution with regards to internationalization, and what should we do on that. And I hope I have provoked some questions that we can look at together, because I think I even managed to be on time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ronnie, for your inspiring presentation. It was really very interesting. By the way, I would like to remind our participants that they can ask their questions by writing down to the chat box But as I see, it's already full of questions. But let me ask you a very brief question for warm-up. In the first session, Douglas answered a question about flexible learning environments, as you know. And I want to ask a similar question to you, since you stand on the other side of the table. And actually, how do you evaluate quality assurance in flexible learning, such as for micro-credentials or so on, as an accreditation agency?
Yeah, this is a very, I think this is a very up-to-date question, because I think quality assurance has to play its role and has to play a very supportive role in that process, because with a change that we see in higher education, the role of micro-credentials or like of more flexible elements of learning, smaller elements of learning, will become more and more important. And I think there is two approaches external quality assurance might have to that. The first thing is really to support institutions in checking and in looking at recognition. Because the key for these, let's call them micro-credentials, is basically how do you recognize them and how do they fit in existing frameworks. So here recognition is an issue. What if you have, if a student comes and has achieved something and can basically say, I have this competency and I have this certificate here, so can this be recognized? So one aspect clearly is quality assurance has to assure or can play a role in assuring that institutions have the right recognition practices in place. And the other part, of course, is looking and developing a fitting framework to quality assure these micro-credentials, because this is the other side of the story. And that basically, I think there is a big project on the European level, the Microball project, that particularly addresses that question. And there is, I think, some very promising outcomes already. And so I think that is something that we as quality assurance providers, we cannot leave that on the blind side. We have to find a way, but we also have to find a flexible way to look at it. Because for these micro-credentials, I don't think there is one size fits all.
Okay, thank you, Ronnie. But I just want to ask one more question, and you may answer the rest. It's coming from Bilal Güneş, Professor Bilal Güneş. She asked, can an institution or a university that prioritizes universal values rather than local dynamics and national values be internationalized? Good question.
Yeah, this is my question would be, why not? Because the question is, what is universal values? And universal values are not necessary. I don't see why universal values are national values. There is a link to internationalization in it as well, if the institution decides to take that way. I'm not saying every institution has to internationalize or has to do it. If an institution has a very particular situation where they see, no, that's not our approach, we go a different way and has good reasons for it, then let's listen to the institution. I think external quality assurance is not the level that defines. Institutions need to define their goals, and then they have to be assessed against it. So I wouldn't. That might be challenging, but I would not see that as impossible.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make a reminder. Thank you very much, Ronnie, for this discussion. And you may continue to answer the questions by using the chat box as well. And our dear participants, we have a very short poll for you. Would you please answer the 2 questions in the poll before leaving for the break? Thank you very much.
Now we are going to have 10 minutes break.
Yes.
Remaining that way until 1935, when it reopened as a museum.
Don't miss it.
In 1632, Hazarfen flew from the very top of the Galata Tower and soared across the Bosphorus, and so the Turks learned how to fly.
The saltiness of the sea, the sourness of the lemon. Fresh fish, only the dogs is fresher.
The rest night knows, and we, and the tower that sees, and the light that showed me a path through the sea. Justinian sent 2 monks from here out on the Silk Road to China to steal the secret of Chinese craft. They returned with silk-white eggs, and from them hatched an empire.
It is a dance. The dancer grows through love towards the truth and finally reaches
perfection.
To the city, Istanbul.
In Istanbul, there are always two cities, 2 streams, slow and fast.
Professor Angel, shall we start?
Okay. Everybody's hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome back from a short coffee break. Let me start by sharing my screen. Give me a second. Now, is my slides coming through?
It is clear, Mr. Ercan.
Yes.
sure you see
Yes,
my slides.
okay.
Okay, dear colleagues, dear respected guests, welcome back after a short coffee break. We hope that you enjoyed our video on some Turkish attraction points, which we really hope to physically share with you in our next meeting. And now we will start our Agile Leadership and Creating Quality Culture session. And before presenting our guest speaker, and again, I will share some brief information about Txc activities. And I want to touch base to another key function of Txc, which is the recognition and authorization process of external evaluation and accreditation agencies. In this commission, I'm privileged to serve together with Professor Figençiz Mecişenel as the chair of our commission, and Professor Sibel Aksu Yıldırım, our vice president of Txc, and Professor Dr. Tuncay Doğeroğlu and Professor Dr. Çetin Erol as our senior members. And Txc is the only authorizing body that reviews the processes of national independent program accreditation agencies. And since 2015, Txc authorized 18 national agencies in a variety of fields. And this can be counted as engineering or medicine programs, veterinary education, nursing, communication, health sciences, and etc. And also in Txc, we also review the processes of international accreditation and external evaluation agencies, which are willing to perform external evaluation in Turkey. And Txc gave recognition to them after approving their compliance with necessary standards. And as seen in the slide, Txc authorized some leading international agencies to function in Turkey and more to follow. So far, 619 programs are accredited by national accreditation agencies, and 177 programs are accredited by international accreditation agencies. And these add up to a total of 796 programs, which is about 10% of all bachelor degree programs in Turkey. And now I want to present our guest speaker. Professor Min Cheng Wu is the Dean of School of Humanistic and Applied Sciences at National Yunlin University of Science and Technology in Taiwan. And he received his doctor degree at Purdue University in the United States in 1995, majoring vocational and technical education. And his academic interests focus on vocational and technical education at higher education level, and occupational psychology and sociology, and educational development and quality evaluation. He is recently administering several research projects on the collaboration among universities for educational quality improvement and revitalization. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am discontinuing my screen share. And Professor Wu, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. First of all, I do want to say how much I appreciate this opportunity to join this group. And just from your video, it reminded me my experience traveling to Turkey. I got good time over there, and I am so happy to get this opportunity working with you. Okay, today, now I want to share my experience and my research on the transformational leadership. This study came from my experience, and I have conducted such kind of actual research in the last 3 years, and I learned a lot. But I just wonder, and I hope my presentation, the topic I present tonight in Taiwan, will fit the goal of your conference. But I do worry about that because, you know, the lady, she keep questioning about the topic if fit the goal or not. But I still feel happy to share this experience to you. Okay. Okay, here. Good. Now, oh, good. Thank you. Okay, right here. Okay, it's okay. Please. Okay, here. Okay, here. The major reason for me to tell you my experience working on this study is that usually professor in university conduct some research on the organization, typically focus on other people. Very limited professor conducts research in university and for ourselves. But now I take this opportunity to share my experience working on the actual research for on campus. Okay, based on my position. Ready? Okay, good. Okay, next. Okay, here. Okay, what I really want to say is that, just like Dr. Stina Erker said that I have lots of experience as an administrator in university. And we always want to.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we see your presentation mode, but it can cause some problems. If you know how to change it, you can change your slides only, but otherwise you can continue with the presentation mode as well. Now we can see your slides in PowerPoint area.
Can you see? Now can you see?
You
okay,
can
good. Thank you.
Magnify the slide a little bit more in the screen, and you can continue like this.
Okay, ready? It's okay, good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, here. Basically, we want our organization, institute, work more effectively. But usually, professor wants to develop lots of project to improve the effectiveness of institution. But we do need to rely on the staff, the administrators in our office. However, in many cases, when we come to the aging era, more and more our staff become elder. Okay, they are more experienced in the office work than most of the office leader. For the senior servant in senior staff in the office, usually become. Oh, could you read that? Could you let them read it? Okay. They become apathetic and depressed, and the inertia. They usually have the inertia attitude toward their work. Okay, so it's the major mission for a leader to lead the senior servant, senior staff. The point to me is how can I revitalize their energetic enthusiasm to work and become friendly, proactive in their work. Can they see? But they cannot see that. They cannot see it. Yeah. Okay, move them. Let them see it. Let them see. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, next. Okay. Okay. The major issues is that the action project I work on for myself is that how can I enhance their proactive behavior? And also, I am so concerned that what can I learn from this experience to be a better leader? Next. Okay, definitely I just like a normal researcher to try to understand how to make people become proactive, to understand the literature review. Okay, next. Okay. Okay, can you let them see that? Okay. Okay, so this action research come from kind of action research. I just improve my work in my office, and I try to enhance the seniors summer staff in my office. So this is a research come from. Next. Okay. Yes, next one. Okay. Okay. I found that at the beginning I found that the seniors staff in my office is so inertia. They have inertia attitude, and they have a limited hard work for limited work to cooperate with others. And some people complain that their attitude again and again. So it become my problem. This is a problem I need to solve and improve their attitude. Next. Okay, here. Okay, next, the point is, how can I improve the attitude? I change my leadership based on their need, and I try to conduct some kind of active intervention to improve their the latest attitude. Okay, first of all, I try to provide the senior. Okay, the senior staff is older than me, and she has more experience in the office work than me. But lots of people complain to me about her, and I get more and more missions to improve my office for the competitions of the university. So I discuss a lot with her. So I try to conduct some kind of intervention, try to improve the senior staff's attitude and proactivities. Okay, here. This is the process. I try to improve that, and definitely when I say I want to enhance their proactivity, in fact, I want to learn how can I be a leader, and how can I lead the proactive team too. So the first step is that I change my leadership and try to listen to her, try to understand what does she really concerned, and I try to understand their inner voice and what should be, what kind of problem should be solved for them to become proactive behaviors. Also, secondarily, I want this lady to fully understand the time is changing. We are not supposed to use the habitual approach to solve the problem and to work with other people. And then we just keep walking and walking. And when I discuss with her, I try to persuade her. In fact, I want to know, and I will try to learn how can I be get a more alternative approach to be a leader. Then, and in fact, also I keep self-reflect for my leadership too. Next. Okay, and finally, I find that when I discuss with her, and she finally keep telling me that she was kind of bored at the routine work over and over a year, and she keep telling me that she want to get more respect, and she want to figure out, and she want other people to fully to understand how valuable is her contributions from the colleague too. And I found that for the senior staff face some kind of problem of bottleneck and grass seniors and grass ceiling, and they get no opportunity to get a promotion too. And also we always believe she's kind of senior staff, but she need people to respect her experience, and she need respect from other people. Okay, and also I still get some kind of positive inner voice from the lady too. And first of all, I found that she is kind of a person willing to dedicate to our team, to our office. And she is some kind of happy to get people with other staff too. And she is a kind of, she has her responsibility, sense of responsibility to our team. And she, because of she is so experienced, and she needs people to respect. And she is so willing to advise other colleagues, and even she wanted to advise me too. And I try to present my respect to her. Just want to encourage her to put more enthusiastic to her work. Okay, and this is my approach to improve her productive behaviors. First of all, I find that any person, she just like any other person, need people to recognize her contribution to. And I lead my other team member to ask her help and like a consultant and for advice too. just to try to present how much we respect her. And we also, I changed my leadership and my attitude toward her. And I try to have a committee, for each task or for each mission, and try to get some kind of advice from her, and try to ask her if possible for her to lead our team. And finally, I found that she is the kind of person need people to become, to build a camaraderie for the team, for the camaraderie too. Okay, finally, she is willing to lead us to have some kind of reflection on our mission, our approach for each work done. Okay, next. Okay, here, after 1 year, definitely I get more frustration than than my encouragement and sense of achievement. Finally, I found that I learned a lot, and she told me so much, and I have conducted some kind of reflection and to modify my leadership too. And I built her self-recognition and a sense of value to this work. Typically, she is kind of major person, fully understand the problem we are facing, we are experiencing, and our future too, because she is so experienced. And when she have such kind of proactive behavior, and she is willing to have a face-to-face talk with me, with other people, and to the other people outside our team too. And so finally, we rebuild our teamship, our camaraderie too. Okay, here, what I really learned from this project is that, I learned so much that from the actual project that, from the 1 year experience when I worked on this project with this senior lady, and I found that, we are supposed to change our concept toward the senior staff. They are willing to work harder. They have their fresh mind, but they just need respect. Also, we find that some senior person, we always believe their attitude is kind of inertia. In fact, no, they just need more sense of achievement. They need respect. And also, I find that, to myself, probably, I should say that I have almost 20 years experience as an office leader. And this experience inspired myself to change my attitude about my leadership, change the role and the mission of the office leader. And I find to be more active and humble to be a leader too. And also, I find that professors as professor and administrators in the institute usually try to modify other people's team members' work approach to enhance the organizational efficacy. But in fact, some problems just come from leaders themselves. So I found that. So I need to change my attitude, my leadership first, then change others. Okay. Here is the model I try to figure out that. As long as we need to change other people, even myself, we are supposed to recognize our mission, our personal role too, and try to build a team as a proactive team to become more active and be more sensitive to the mission too. And then finally, we will be able to conduct a constructive community in our office too. Okay, here is the ecological factors and models I developed for this one too. So means we need some kind of intervention to improve our office advocacy, and we need to build some proactive environment until to enhance our organizational efficacy. Okay, here this is my inspiration. I get that we, as a researcher and as an administrator and professors, I learned so much to reorganize my leadership, and I have done so much to help my team member to conduct some kind of self-recognitions and so support environment too, then become the professional intervention to be leader per activities. Okay. Well, okay, can you let them see that? Do you think they can see that? Okay. Okay, here. And here is the model that, okay. I try to change them. I tried to change the team member. And also I get a reflect to reorganize my concept too. So as long as I work on them, I conduct some kind of reflection to rebuild my personal concept about my leadership and my administration strategies too. I learn from talking with the senior staff too. Okay. Okay. Also, we found that the staff we work, as long as we can work with them humbly and proactively, leader can improve their proactivities, and we improve ourselves too. So we will finally work together to improve. We both side proactive behaviors to be a good team. When I say team, is our staff and the leader, leader myself. Okay, here. This is what I reflection. Finally, I get a reflection on that. And this study inspired myself to think about, to have rethink what kind of leader I want to be, as a team developer or just a kind of manager, and also how I reorganize my role model to role model. I want to be a servant and inspirer of the team or just a ruler. So okay. Also, I find that. As an office leader, we always set the KPI for our team. But finally, I don't believe that. I don't trust that. I finally say that we will not be able to improve our team efficacy unless we can build a mutual trust between the leader and the staff. So this experience, when I conduct this actual research, we found that this experience benefit myself more than more than enhance my staff or my office efficacy. And finally, I'm so happy to get this experience because finally I build the camaraderie in my office. So I enjoy working with them. I hope they are so. They enjoy so much to work with me and work in my office too. Okay, okay. Thank you for this opportunity, and this is all. And hopefully you will have any question I can answer to you, discuss. Thank you.
Professor Ruth, thank you very much for a few technical problems, but you did an inspiring and great presentation about the importance of the leadership. That's very critical. Could you make a few comments? What is the impact of agile leadership in internalization and building of quality assurance in higher education institutions? How can we convince our staff, to get a hold of this issue and, internalize the quality assurance themselves?
Ready? Okay. Thank you for your question. Okay, again, my experience is that professors usually try to design some kind of criteria to ask our team, and typically we want to set the KPI to ask our team member to improve our organizational efficacy. But in fact, limited limited leaders try to conduct some kind of research on his or her leadership. This experience, this research teaches me to improve myself first. Then I will be able to improve the office quality, the leadership, and my members' work quality. I learned from this experience. Did I answer to your question?
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If one more question, we can pass it to Professor Wu. You can also use the chat box, and Professor Wu can also answer. I think there's one more question, then we will continue with the next session for the sake of time-wise. It's Ahmet Adaler says, thanks, Professor Wu. Our question is whether you consider proactive, agile, and empowering leadership terms interchangeably.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yes, I believe strongly. I believe so. Yes, when we try to empower our team member to have their job done, definitely we are supposed to be more sensitive to understand how do they feel and what kind of problem they are encountering, and we are supposed to find out how to encourage them first and find out what the problem we our organization and our staff member really face before we deliver our mission to them. This is an experience I'm inspired from this study, this experience. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Wu, and I also thank the audience for their contributions. And now it's time to pass the word to our student representative, Feraye Yilmaz, for our fourth team. And Feraye, speaker is yours.
Thank you, Professor Ercan. Now I'm sharing my screen. Is everything okay? Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone, again. I'm Aleyna Feraye Yilmaz, and I'm a member of Student Commission, as Professor Ercan said. In this final session, we're going to talk about student participation in QA activities. But before the presentation of our speakers begin, I'd like to tell you some of our works as Txc Students Commission in Turkey. In Txc, we always try to increase student participation in QA activities. First of all, we have a student commission within Txc that I'm a member of. The head of our commission is representing students in the council. Our council consisting of 9 members. We are selected by paying attention to department, gender, or degree. And for the current academic year, me and my friend Muhammad were accepted as members of SUQA Student Experts Pool. We participated regularly and actively the trainings held within the scope. Yeah, as I said before, as Txc, we are making a great effort to increase student participation in QA processes. We carry out several activities in this regard. The first event of Student Commission in order to accelerate our works is Quality Ambassador Student Meeting Series. The topics of the series of 4 are, the first one is Quality in Higher Education, What, How, and Why. The student participation in QA processes in higher education, QA in distance education, and the last one is student experiences regarding external evaluation processes. And as a part of reviews of Txc's membership process to ENCA, students were also interviewed. We expressed our views on importance of student participation and the situation of the process in Turkey. And this picture is from the workshop on quality in higher education, improving the process on reliability of national quality systems. Students also participated in this workshop, and we discussed the topic, role of students in the review process and international quality assurance networks in our table. The last thing I want to say about our works is that in Higher Education Dialogues webinar hosted by British Council, our Student Commission member, Sena Çatal, she talked about the studies of Txc Student Commission on learning motivations during the pandemic process. She shared the results of several surveys carried out for the students studying in higher education in Turkey. And lastly, I want to introduce you about our speakers of this session. Liv Teresa Muth, she is a member of steering committee of SQA Student Experts Pool and also a member of student committee of German Student Accreditation Pool. And Patrick Niebugal, steering committee of German Student Accreditation Pool and a member of SQA Student Experts Pool. Liv and Patrick, welcome again, and screen is yours now.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. I hope my microphone works now perfectly and you can all hear me well. So
it's okay now.
Perfect. So hello and welcome to our contribution to this webinar, which is called the Student Participation in Quality Assurance Activities. We are delighted to have this opportunity here and be invited to contribute to your webinar. Next slide, please. As we were already so kindly introduced, I will keep it short here. So you already have some background information where we stand as student experts. But we would also like to know who you are in the audience. So we would like to ask you to answer the Zoom poll that will be up shortly and indicate which stakeholder group you are representing so we can take this into consideration and kind of tailor our presentation towards the audience. I will wait a couple of more seconds for some more answers. Okay, I think we have half of the participants already taken the survey, so I can share with you the results. So the majority of participants of this webinar are professors or academic staff, followed by quality assurance agencies and students as well. Thank you very much for answering this. That will help us in the further presentation. And with this, I give the floor to Patrick.
Yes, thank you. Also welcome from my side. First of all, we want to shortly introduce what is the European and the German student QA pool. So first of all, the ESO QA pool was founded in 2009. It organized roughly 50 reviews per year, so the student participation in 50 reviews per year. It consists of 90 students from 28 European countries, as we also heard, two students also from Turkey. It has an independent steering committee from the European Students' Union, and it's connected through the executive committee and the presidency member. The German Student Accreditation Pool was already founded in 2000, and it covers the student participation about 750 reviews per year. It is independent from the National Union of Students. However, it is based on the democratical structures. So it's based on the National Union of Students, the General Students' Committee for each of the 16 states of Germany, and also subject-related student bodies. Both are completely run from students and has some administration employees. For further information about the German Student Accreditation Pool, I also linked you a paper from the European Quality Assurance Forum that you can dive in more deeper if you're interested in that. So what are in general the challenges about student participation in QA? So first of all, there's a short student life cycle. So especially if you compare to academics. So most students just studying like 3 to 5 years on average. In addition to that, many of the students are working beside. So according to Eurostudent, 59% of all students are working. Moreover, also the inflexible curriculum of study programs causing big problems. In a survey we did with student reviews in Germany, there were 32% who said that this is a big issue for them. And so we cannot even imagine how big the number is of students that are not even becoming student reviewers. Furthermore, there is a lack of information and transparency. So especially like we are here like also in kind of a bubble. Like most of the students don't even know what QA is, and when we are honest. Besides that, also some has a big problem that lack of impact and taking seriously being equal member. Students are only participating and being active if they're really seeing that they can really have an impact and change something. If they don't have, then there's also no motivation for that. So now I'll pass on again to Liv.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and based on the identified challenges that Patrick just presented, we are switching now to the success factors for student participation in quality assurance that we see. And with the last point that Patrick mentioned, I will already take this into the first success factor that we want to share with you here. And this is have a say. So it's very important that student experts have an equal voice and equal position within the expert panels inside the peer review, that they are taken seriously, that they are also by law or by formality included as an equal member. Then also regarding the student points of view or the unique contribution that student experts bring into the expert panel, they have this unique view and experience of being a student representative themselves. So they learned during these periods or these duties how to represent a certain student view on behalf of their peers and speak on behalf of the student peers' experience. Furthermore, another aspect is that through qualifying seminars that already were also in the Turkish context mentioned before in the introduction, a knowledge-based theoretical background of the student experts is established, so they can contribute with that knowledge also to quality assurance reviews. And in that sense, it's also important to increase and expand this knowledge-based community by providing independent networking and exchange platforms for the student experts.
So another major success factor is capacity building. As we already said, that student life cycle is pretty short. So these are just some examples of it. Also how it's kind of done in Germany. So basically, the students are participating in a 3-day seminar, which are mostly organized from student unions. The students that are participating, some are coming from the student unions, but not everyone. Everyone is like able to participate. After the 3-day seminar, to have also the knowledge to really also equally have a say, because if you want to have equal say, then you also like need to have the knowledge about it. After that, you become a student reviewer. You can reviewing study programs and universities. And experienced student reviewers afterwards then organize, design, and lead seminars and workshops. So the seminars that students are participating are facilitated from experienced students itself. Furthermore, these experienced student reviewers also promote more student participation in QA because they have the knowledge and the experience. So they promote that more students are participating in the seminars and also promote to the student unions that it's a really important topic where they also can change something. Besides that, there's also kind of, we call it active citizenship, because we are seeing that students participating in QA can be seen as a kind of that, because basically no student need to be involved in that. I mean, they can personally say just, okay, I'm studying, I'm finished, I just want to be fast. So basically, you need to be like really engaged in more than just studying. So therefore, we need also some requirements that students can participate. First of all, remuneration for their work. So especially since we already mentioned that 59% of the students are working besides in the study program, they kind of need to get some money that they're using the time to also evaluate, because normally this is a time where they work. I also linked a study from my colleague Liv about the remuneration in German-speaking countries. Then transparent procedures, outreach, and media representation to reach every student, which is really important because it's a really specific and also kind of complex topic for students. So this really needs to be done. And as I already saw, like in the beginning from some slides, that you even have an Instagram channel, so you are way more further than many of other organizations in that. And last, be as inclusive as possible. Identify and resolve barriers. We cannot emphasize a lot about that. It's like really a major point, because every student has like an individual experience and individual backgrounds, and the more diverse you have in reviews, the better can be the contribution, because based on these experiences and backgrounds, you have a different perspective on everything.
Yeah, I will continue with the point that Patrick just mentioned about reaching out. So for the participation throughout all the levels, which we identified as the next success factor, as a prerequisite, we see that information needs to be disseminated to potential students and potential student representatives, which become later reviewers. So it's important to outreach to those and give them the information they need to become a part of the QA world, so to say. We also see that a meaningful participation on multiple levels is necessary to create the ownership for the student representatives. So only if they see their impact, their equal impact as the other members, and that they can change and have a say there, that they have a sense of ownership. And also in that sense, and the representation and engagement on multiple levels, you can kind of intertwine the student representative network into the quality assurance network on national or local levels. If we are talking about the time point when to engage student expert, we always recommend engage them and let them participate from the beginning, so they can actively shape processes and projects from the beginning onwards and make their contributions. And if we have a look at the more broader level of how to engage and participate on all levels, we are not only talking about reviews and student experts in quality assurance reviews themselves, but also on other levels of quality assurance related activities, from policy making to committees within higher education institutions and the quality assurance agency, over projects towards contributions to conferences. And with that, I would like to sum up the major points that we want to give you as takeaways from our presentation. So the first one is students have their unique perspectives, and student experts should be equal partners towards an effective quality assurance system. They should be integrated as in this partnership as well. The second point is referring to the unique perspectives of the students, their own experiences, and also their opportunity to speak up for their peers, for their student fellows. The third point is about the participation and engagement on multiple levels, which can go from review panels over project work to governance. The fourth point that we want to mention here is the importance of the allocation of resources for student experts and their networks. This is both in forms of financial support, but also structural support that we are referring here to. And in that sense, it's important that student and student representative bodies are supported in building their own independent capacity, and thereby creating a long-term sustainable system where the students are actively contributing to their own system, their own independent independent bodies.
Thank you, Liv and Patrick, for your presentation. We have a question about your presentation. You introduced us about capacity building, and we have a question about that. What is the most important part in capacity building process, in your opinion?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think the most important thing here is to really try to engage student unions. So I'm honest, I don't know how the structures are in Turkey, but these student unions or clubs are like kind of multipliers. So you just reach out to like one organization and you already have like 10, 20 or 30 students, and mostly the students that are active in student unions, they're not only democratically like representing the students, they also like as like themselves, they are like a multiplier. So it's pretty easy then to kind of like scale and rebuild capacity.
Thank you, Patrick. And we have one more question to Patrick. How can we decrease inflexible curriculum in students or increase student involvement into quality assurance? For example, increase education quality, lectures, and faculty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, we already heard like a lot of this, like flexible learning, for example. So this will be like really beneficial to that. Besides that, it's also, we have some like best practices, like in many other like countries. We kind of observed that in the ESU. So like there are like universities that giving students also like ECTS, like credits that they're participating, that they're like being active as student representative and in QA activities. Since this is also some like some where they're really learning.
Thank you for your answer, Patrick. And we have one more question in chat box. We have also more than one, but for the time limit, we have to pick one of them. And I ask you this question. How do you consider your role when visiting universities for evaluations or reviews?
Yeah, I think I will pass that to Liv since we did it like together, so that I'm not answering everything on my own.
Okay, Liv, where do you?
Yeah, sure, I can answer that one. So I would say I consider my role as a team player. So you are there not alone. And each and every one of the review expert panel brings their own unique perspectives, their own individual background into the team, which can only lead to synergies in a team. And for me personally, it's very important that the team also, or the group also acts in that sense. So to value the opinions of the other and work together to do quality assurance and enhancement together.
Thank you very much, Liv and Patrick, for your helpful presentation and your answers. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Dilek and Mr. Ayhan to the closure. I'm sorry. Thank you again.
Dear participants, now we are closing the webinar. We thank you very much for your participation and contribution to our 5th year webinar and wish you healthy and quality days.
5. yıl webinarımıza katılım ve katkılarınızdan dolayı teşekkür eder. Sağlıklı, kaliteli günler dileriz.
Goodbye.
Hoşça kalın.